Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now we've got some puzzle for you today. Ryan Oswald recently wrote to us saying he'd been watching the channel for a while and he was inspired to create his first Sudoku. And this amused me because rather than just trying to sort of make a classic Sudoku or something like that, Ryan obviously is a fan of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night painting, so he decided he was going to turn that into a Sudoku. And this is what he's created, and our testers have looked at it and they say it is a brilliant puzzle. So I am so looking forward to trying this. I mean, there is a lot going on, of that being no doubt, but this is going to be great fun. Now, a couple of things to mention. Chess Sudoku, which we released last week, has been going very well. I want to just show you. This is it on the Android store. You can see it's trotting along there with 5 stars out of 5. Thank you to all of those of you who've reviewed it so far. If you have bought it and you are enjoying it, then please add to these good reviews, because it does seem to make a difference to how Android and the App Store promote the game. But obviously we are thrilled. It takes so much time to create one of these apps. You probably wouldn't believe how much time it takes. But when it comes out and you guys like it, that makes it all worthwhile. Now, I also wanted to show you something else that might amuse you. How am I going to do this? 1 second, let me get rid of that. Simba has suggested we might need to upgrade our logo soon, and he came up with a suggestion. So let me show you. Here it is. Here it is, Simba's new logo for Cracking the Cryptic. As one of my friends somewhat unkindly put it, that they hadn't realised that Ronnie Corbett and William Hague appeared on Cracking the Cryptic. But I have to say, our wives thought it was quite amusing, and we do like it enough that we might go with it. So this is a plea to you guys. Let us know what you think of the logo. If you think you can do better, by all means, submit your efforts, and we will take a look. Now let's go back to the puzzle and let me talk about how this works. You can see it's sort of a hybrid of Killer Sudoku and sort of an enciphered Sudoku. So where we have black letters like these, that means that, let's say this digit was a 5, that would mean that 5 would have to appear in any cell that contains a black V, so there would have to be a 5 in both of those squares. And I've put on the right hand side here an area where you can do your workings. So if you work out that an I was an 8 or a 9, you can pencil mark into this square 8 or 9 like that. Now the downside of me having done that is that it does mean the check function won't work, because the check function only works for very standard 9x9 grids. So once you've finished, if you're not sure whether you've got the correct answer, I suggest you compare it to whatever I come up with on the video, assuming I can do it. Now you can see there are some killer Sudoku cages here. Always remember with a killer Sudoku cage that what we have to do is make sure that the numbers in the cage add up to whatever number is appearing in the top left or the top right in this bottom right hand cage. And you can't repeat a digit in a killer Sudoku cage. That's an important criterion. And you've also got these sort of shaded areas which Ryan has used to create the picture. So you can see that all of the grey cells together add up to SG, whatever that's going to be. All of the green cells GO, all of the yellow cells OG, and all of the blue cells HA. Now apart from that, I don't think there's anything else to tell you. I think we should just let's get cracking and get on with it. Now, as always, on Cracking the Cryptic, you can play the puzzle. Just click on the link under the video. That will take you to exactly this screen where you can play on whichever device you prefer to do or prefer to use. Now let's go. So my eyes are drawn immediately to this column because I know that the total for any column in a killer Sudoku will be 45. So 8 cells of a column I mean, the maximum I could make this number would be a 9, in which case Vn would have to begin with a 3. And the minimum I could make this cell would be a 1, in which case Vn would have to begin with a 4. So we know already, I think, that V is a 3 or a 4. Which means that we can highlight those cells as being, no, 3 or 4. We could, if I could click the right mouse button appropriately. So we've got 3 or 4 into those two squares. Now here we've got double O here. That's very important. So we know that this cage is either equal to 11, 22, 33 or 44. Well, it clearly can only be equal to 11 because it's only got 2 numbers in it. So I can never get to 22 in 2 cells. So we actually get our first digit then. O is a 1. These add up to 11. O is 1, so we can put a 1 in there. Now this 4 cell cage now adds up to 11, so that must be 1, 2, 3 and 5. And okay, what next? Just 1 second while I stare at this and try and spot something that might be helpful. Yeah, okay, this one. We can see this 5 cell cage has a total of NH. Now, we can't get to 40 in 5 cells, that's impossible. So, and we know N can't be 1, so N is 2 or 3. So let's put that in. That's a 2 or a 3. That's a 2 or a 3 in the bottom left-hand corner. Now that's interesting as well, isn't it? Because now these ends interact quite nicely, because we now know that whether this is to 2 or whether it's to 3, we have to put that 2 or 3 in one of these 3 squares. Well, we can't put it in an A or an H square because we know A and H are going to have to be a different number, i.e. not whatever N is equal to. So 2 or 3 must go in that square, which gives us another square on the greens. Now hang on, GO here is 6 squares large. So again, that means we can't get to 40 in 6 cells. Because if we could, that would imply we could make 3 cells add up to 5 to make 45, and we can't. 3 cells, if you have different numbers, 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. So the maximum this could be would be 39. So G is also 2 or 3. Now that might be helpful because that, yes, it is helpful. So now G and N are 2 and 3 in some order. V can no longer be 3. All the digits have got to be different. So V is 4. So this... now this is interesting. Now this cage down here is either equal to 42 or 43. So this square is a 2 or a 3. Because if it's 42, I'll need a 3 here. If it's 43, I'll need a 2 here in order to make the column add up to 45. That gives us a 2-3 pair look in row 1. And this 4 forces a 4 into one of those squares. And G is 2 or 3, so we get 2s and 3s into those 2 positions. That must be a 2 or a 3. My phone's buzzing at me. Okay, so can we now... Sorry, just a second while I think about this. This is 11. You can see this A and this A cage share a box. but I'm not sure that's terribly helpful. Or at least if it is, I can't quite see how to use that at the moment. I don't think I can possibly use areas like this big blue area. That's just, hang on, look, the yellow area. That's what I need to use next. I should have spotted that. OG. So this is 11. I know G is equal to 2 or 3. So what that's telling us is that the yellow cells either add up to 12 or 13. And given that this is 11, this square must be a 1 or a 2. Well, that's surprisingly unhelpful. Okay, let's try another of these then. GO. So GO is either equal to 21 or 31. And here we've got... okay. I see. So you can see these are either going to be 2s and then this will be a 3 because we know this will equal n, or these will be 3s and this will be a 2. So if this is 2 2s, that would be 5, 8. Or so these squares are either equal to 8 or 9, and the green squares either add to 21 or 31. I feel like I should be able to tell something useful there. So if it's 31, that would need 3s here. This would be a 2. And 22. These squares would have to add to 22. Again, I mean, I can see they all have to be quite big, but I don't know how. I don't see how I'm getting much of a restriction from that. What am I doing wrong here? There must be some other way of... Oh, hang on. This has to equal GO. So if G is a 2, this would have to equal 21. Now that would mean this would have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that is not possible. Why do I say that? Well, at least I don't think it's possible, but it isn't possible because you can see that if this contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the 1 would have to be up here. And that forces, because the 1 would be up here, that would make this a 2, this would have to be a 3. Now, I've then still got to put the numbers 2 and 4 into at least one of these squares, but I know that none of these letters are 2 or 4. They have to be 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. So this is not 21, this is 31. Now that might help us. So that means that we can fill in loads of stuff all of a sudden. Although not this digit apparently. G was equal to what? 3. That's 2. Now we might be able to do some actual... Yes, we can. We can do normal Sudoku to get a 3 there. There must be a 2 along the OV. OV is 14. So this is... It still needs another 12. Now let's just check whether we can get anything else from normal Sudoku rules. 3s. There's no 3 in those squares. There must be a 3 in one of those two positions. That locks a 3 into one of those two squares. And so this is a 3 and this is a 2. So this now, NH, is a number beginning with a 2. Now hang on, we can look at this, I think. let's have a look at this square, because look at that, there's a relationship between whatever I make this total and whatever I put in this square, and that's going to restrict the value of I. Now I, we know, has to be a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, so let's just look at this. N is 2, so if H is 5, this would be 25, plus 5 is 30, plus another 5 is 35. I would have to be 10, that's not possible. So we can rule out H is 5. If H is 6, that's going to work, isn't it? So now we've got 26, 32, 37. This would be an 8. That's fine. So 6 and 8 works. 7. Actually, 7 might work as well. I'm not sure. 27, 34, 39. This would have to be a 6. And 8 and 9 aren't going to work because they're going to force this to be too low. So H is not 8 or 9. H is 6 or 7. 7, 30, 32, 39, 6. Yeah. So this has to be a 6 or a 7. Okay, so we're getting somewhere, but we still haven't cracked it. But SG is equal to the grey squares, and I know what the value of the grey squares is now, because this is what's that, 42, and this is 31, so that adds up to 73. So S is 7. Let's put that in. That means H must be 6. I must be 8. Oh, and now we are getting somewhere. I is 8. There's an 8 up there, therefore. That 8 is nice because that locks an 8 into one of those two squares. So this is a 4-8 pair now. So A and T are 5 and 9 in some order. That's a 5 or a 9, therefore. Now that must be useful, surely, in terms of this A cage. And this A cage must be a 5 or a 9. Now let me just stare at this for a second, because 6, 7, 9 along here. So these two squares have got to be 1 and 5. So what can we say about this? We can probably finish off the GO box. We've got 9, 18, 23. These two squares have to add up to 8. So that they can't be 2, 6, because that would repeat the 6. So these two squares are 1, 7, and we get the order from this 1, look. That locks a 7 into one of those squares. That fixes this as a 2 after all that, which I could have got before actually, because OG of course was equal. That once I got G was 3, I could have written that cell in, I just forgot. There's a 2 up here. 2 over here, look. This 2 is nice, because if we look at the box 3 and box 6, we've locked 2s into column 8 and column 9 in both of those boxes. So now we can ask, where does the 2 go? Along here. In column 7, we know it's in none of those squares, so it must be in this column, and therefore because of these 2's it must be in this square. And that fixes the 3 as well. And this 7 is beautiful, because now we know that this box equals 14, so these two squares add up to 12. They can't be 3, 9, they can't be 5, 7. These two squares are 4 and 8. Now that must fix, yes it does, that this 11 cage now must be 5, 6. 6 there fixes the order, look. Locks a 5 out of these squares. 5, 5. So there must be a 5 in the blue squares in one of those two positions. These squares have got to be 1, 7 and 9. Now we know NH is equal to 26, so this 179 here actually resolves it. That gives us a 5 there, a 9 there, and a 5 there. So we now know that A is 9, T is 5. That's got to be a 4 to complete the row. These two squares have to add up to 9 now. They can't be 2, 7, 3, 6, or 4, 5. So these two squares are 1 and 8. That fixes the 5 and the 1 at the top. These two squares have got to be 3 and 7. That's now doable. Now we can do the green cells, presumably, because we know they're equal to 31. So far we've got 13, 15, 22, and so this is a 9, and that must be a 4. This is a 6. Okay. So we haven't done, what haven't we used now? We've not used the blue squares at all, and we know the blue squares add up to 69. I think we've done everything we can with the grey squares. So in a minute this should be becoming very close to normal Sudoku. Let me just have a quick stare at this now. So if we look up here, we need 6, 8 and 9 to complete the column. The 6's here interact on the middle box, look, and they force a 6 into that square. 6 in one of those two positions. Oh, A, we can write that in. That's got to be 9. That might be useful. That locks a 9 over there. Locks a 9 into one of those two squares as well. That means that's not a 9 anymore. Twos. 4, 8 here. So this 1 rules a 1 out from that square. These have got to be 5, 7, 9. That can't be 9. 7 must be in one of those two squares in the central box. That means that's not a 7. And now there must be a couple of easy pickings here that I'm just not spotting. Let's have a quick stare and see if we can... Yeah, 8. Look, 8 goes in the middle of the grid. Just by normal Sudoku. Now that gives us a 1-4 pair on the blue lines, look. And what next can we do? Maybe have a look at column 1 where we need 4, 5, 7 and 8. So this 4 shifts a 4 down there. Okay. This square maybe? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 6, 7 or a 9. So that's a 7, look, because of the 6 there and the 7 there. That should be helpful. 7. These two squares are now 6 and 9. It's a heck of a good puzzle, isn't it? I mean, how original to come up with this. I mean, let alone as your first Sudoku. I mean, it's mind-blowing. These two squares have got to be 3 and 7 now. Again, we can't tell the order. I'm wondering whether this blue region actually is going to be the only way of disambiguating everything, because it seems like everything else is just resisting slightly. So 4, 5 and 9 along here. So this is the only place a 4 can go in the central row. So this is a 5 or a 9. There must be a 4 down here. Two, 3, 4, 5. So there must be an 8 up here. Now that 8 is going to be useful, because that means that's a 6. So still we are left trying to work out what's going on. Don't forget, by the way, that these blue squares are not a cage, so I can't use this 7 and this 9 to sort of argue these are 5s. That obviously wouldn't be right. Okay, so what now? Let's fill in these 2 squares. You can see these have to be 8 and 9, so we can do that. That gives us a 5 here and a 9 here. This square's got to be a 1. So these are 5, 7, 8 in some order. The 5 there means this must be a 7 or an 8. This must be 5, 7 or 8. The 9 resolves the 7 at the bottom. Oh, that is useful. That gives us a 5 here. So we are closing in, I think, on the value of this blue region. So I need to... These are 5 and 7. Again, I can't resolve it. This blue region is only going to be resolved, I think, by... We need them to... It's 69. So we've got 5, 10... 19, 21, 30, 37, yeah, okay. So these 4 squares have got to add up to 32. So we can immediately rule out 3 from this one, because there's no way I could make the other 3 add up to 29. So this is a 7, and I bet you that is important. Yeah, that's going to give us a 7 there as well. That means 5 can only go there in the yellow squares. So we've now got 14, we needed 32. These 2 have got to add up to 18, so they've both got to be 9. Oh, that's brilliant, isn't it? So this is 6, this is now 8, that's 4. The 4 and the 1 get resolved, the 2 and the 3 get resolved. My goodness. This is 2 and 6, so that must be in that order. Now hopefully, getting these digits here will resolve everything below, and it does. Look at this, it's all going to unwind now. What a great puzzle. Ryan, thank you very much for that. I'm not going to click check because it will tell me I've got it wrong, and I sincerely hope I haven't, but I loved it. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought. How often is it you get to solve Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night Sudoku? Only on Cracking the Cryptic. See you next time.